This is Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Welcome to Pulse of Africa News. I'm Edo Masai. We cover inspiring stories and key moments shaping Africa. We'll start with Trade and Investment Cooperation. South Africa and China have taken fresh steps to strengthen their economic partnership, following high-level Joint Economic and Trade Commission talks held in Beijing, led by South Africa's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Competition, Parks Tao, and China's Minister of Commerce, Wang Wentao. The three-day engagement reaffirmed the strategic importance of the bilateral relationship, with both sides committing to expand trade, investment, and industrial cooperation. A key outcome of the meeting was the signing of the China-Africa Economic Partnership Agreement, a framework aimed at deepening economic ties and creating more predictable conditions for long-term collaboration. Central to these discussions was improved market access for South African goods. Negotiations are advancing toward an early harvest agreement expected by March 2026, which would open the door to duty-free access for a range of South African exports into the Chinese market. This move is seen as a major boost to South Africa's export diversification efforts and its drive to support local industries.
We're able to sign the framework agreement on economic partnership for shared prosperity, which is now taking forward the commitment that China had made to ensure that we have duty-free and quota-free access into the Chinese market. We've committed that over the next 2 weeks, our teams would sit down to work on the detail from an implementation point of view, now that we've reached agreement. This is to ensure that by the time the Binational Commission happens on the 26th of March, we are able to agree on what implementation looks like, which tariff lines we're talking about, which areas of investments we're talking about, and what the critical areas of implementation are. I think that it is an exciting moment because the commitment that's made by China is to ensure that we are able to access the Chinese market as Africa. This offer has been extended to the entire continent of Africa, and of course, as a developing country, we've had to enter into detailed negotiations to get to the point of this agreement.
The talks also covered cooperation in investment, renewable and new energy, technology and multilateral engagement, reflecting shared interests in sustainable development and industrial growth. China extended invitations to South Africa to participate in key trade and investment platforms, including the 9th China International Import-Expo in Shanghai and the targeted Steel Investment Forum, signaling increased opportunities for business linkages. Minister Tao noted that the strengthened engagement presents new opportunities for South African firms, particularly in agriculture, mining, renewable energy, and technology, while Chinese investment is expected to continue supporting job creation and industrial expansion in South Africa. China remains South Africa's largest trading partner, and the Beijing talks underscore both countries' commitments to implementing agreements that support mutual growth. The meeting marks a significant milestone in the evolving South Africa-China partnership, laying the groundwork for deeper economic cooperation amid shifting global trade dynamics. Zambia and Ghana have signed 10 cooperation agreements and Memorandum of Understanding aimed at strengthening diplomatic, economic, and social relations between the two countries. The accords were signed during Ghanaian President John Mahama's 3-day official visit to Zambia at the invitation of President Hakainde Hichilema. The agreements span a wide range of sectors, reflecting a shared commitment to closer collaboration. A centerpiece of the package is a visa-free travel agreement that will allow citizens of both countries to move freely, a move expected to boost tourism, trade, and people-to-people exchanges. Other accords cover diaspora engagement, disaster risk management, health cooperation, defense collaboration, civil aviation, and regulatory cooperation between standards and medicines authorities. President Mahama described the visa-free arrangement as a major milestone toward Africa's free movement aspirations, noting that it would help unlock greater economic and social interaction between the two nations.
The time has come to now walk through properly the issues that you are confronting in Ghana, large-scale mining, but also small-scale artisanal mines. So I won't waste too much time, but we will cover those issues in more detail. But more important, on how we can avoid, as I said, reinventing the wheel, and really just get on with the work that Ghana has already invested in, which is relevant to us as well. And obviously other sectors, how to deal with multilaterals as we work with them in Ghana, Zambia. It was important to us. On the continent of Africa, my brother and I are part of a team of African presidents that are working on the reform of the African Union, plus the reform of the global financial architecture, and mainly to deal with the cost of capital, how Africa is treated in those areas, because we're having to pay a higher cost of capital than any other continent, even in the same business, similar business, same sector. And you can't accuse us of being inefficient when one element, which is crucial, which is capital, is brought to the continent, to our countries, at a much, much higher cost, injecting a higher cost of doing business in our countries.
He said the broader set of agreements would strengthen cooperation in trade, investment, and security, while advancing regional integration goals. President Hichilema, speaking alongside the signing ceremony, stressed the need for African countries to deepen economic engagement and remove barriers to trade. He called on African leaders to wake up to the continent's potential, emphasizing private sector-driven growth and stronger intra-African trade under the African Continental Free Trade Area framework.
We have to go beyond political dialogue and go into economic consolidation and bilateral economic relations between our two countries. We believe that a kind of enhanced economic partnership agreement, or whatever you technocrats will eventually call it, which is higher than just the political dialogue and the permanent joint commissions, will be the way to go, so that we share lived experiences in real time. And so we are determined to rekindle the spirit between our two countries, to recapture the cooperation that existed between our two first presidents, in order that we win the next battle of economic transformation and creating prosperity for our two people.
The visit also featured a business engagement bringing together Zambian and Ghanaian entrepreneurs to explore opportunities in manufacturing, agriculture, and investment. Both leaders said the new agreements lay a strong foundation for long-term partnership and position Zambia and Ghana to play a more active role in Africa's economic transformation.
The African Union leads advocacy for the climate resilience, emphasizing adaptation technologies, renewable energy, and global support for vulnerable communities. Despite the continent's low emissions, building on prior summits, initiatives secure resources for drought, flood, and environmental challenges, while promoting green development. This positions Africa as a leader in sustainable solutions. African leaders will advance these priorities at the 39th Ordinary Session of the AU Assembly on February 14 to 15, 2026 in Addis Ababa. Pulse of Africa showcases climate leadership. For the latest on this topic, please tune in.
Cleaner cities are creating healthier, safer, and more livable communities in Ethiopia. Every small change makes a big difference.
The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development invested £895 million in Morocco in 2025, up from £530 million in 2024, with 33% directed to the private sector and over 80% allocated to green finance initiatives. Among the notable investments, the bank provided a £300 million sustainability-linked loan to the state-owned utility, ONEE, marking the region's first such loan in the energy sector. EBRD also allocated £150 million to the third and final phase of the SAI's water conservation program, supporting irrigation of 20,000 hectares and benefiting 1.8 million people. Additionally, Moroccan bank Crédit du Maroc received a £50 million loan to finance private sector green projects under Morocco's decarbonization and climate resilience program. In total, EBRD invested a record £2.8 billion across 65 projects in the southern and eastern Mediterranean region in 2025, making it the third largest regional recipient of the bank's investments, compared with £2.4 billion in 2024. The Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Republic of the Congo have validated a bilateral fiscal agreement for the long-planned road-rail bridge connecting Kinshasa and Brazzaville. The four-day technical session at the Agence Congolaise des Grands Travaux in Kinshasa concluded with a unified framework covering taxation, custom duties, and fiscal responsibilities for the future bridge. The agreement is designed to harmonize economic management, prevent double taxation, and streamline operations related to tolls, goods in transit, and customs. Officials from both countries hailed the milestone as a decisive step toward advancing the project, which is expected to boost regional trade, reduce logistics costs, and attract investment. With the fiscal framework validated, next steps include formal ratification by both governments and preparatory work for construction, moving the decades-long initiative closer to reality and enhancing economic integration between the two capitals. Moving on to business news. Following a successful pilot in South Africa, ABSA, in partnership with Microsoft Elevate and Women in Tech, has announced the expansion of its Elevate Her AI program across 9 additional African markets. The initiative aims to bridge the digital divide and empower women with practical skills to thrive in the global AI economy. The program provides hands-on training in artificial intelligence, including tools like Microsoft Copilot, enabling participants to generate ideas, automate tasks, and apply AI responsibly in work, business, and study contexts. It focuses on employability, entrepreneurship, and economic participation, equipping women with both technical skills and digital confidence. Since its launch in the late 2025, the pilot in South Africa has reached over 10,000 learners who receive Microsoft badges as digital credentials upon completion. Microsoft has committed $4 billion toward technology and skilling initiatives, aiming to credential 20 million learners globally by 2027. Melissa Slaymaker, Africa Regional Director for Women in Tech, emphasized that the program removes barriers to AI engagement and fosters leadership opportunities for women across Africa. Tamu Dutuma of ABSA highlighted that Elevate Her AI aligns with the bank's commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equipping communities with the tools to succeed in the rapidly evolving digital economy. French oil major TotalEnergies has acquired a 42.5% operated interest in Namibia's PEL 104 exploration license from Maravilla Oil and Gas and 8 offshore investments holdings. The acquisition expands Total's portfolio in the country's prolific offshore sector. The license is located north of Total's Venice development, which has a production target of 150,000 barrels per day, and the Mopane Mega Discovery, where the company holds a 40% operating stake acquired from Gulf last year. Mopane is estimated to contain over 10 billion barrels of oil. TotalEnergies aims to be the first company to produce oil in Namibia by the end of the decade, highlighting the strategic importance of these holdings for its regional ambitions. 3 exploration wells are planned at Mopane in 2026 and to better understand the resource potential, while geological complexities have increased development costs. CEO Patrick Pouyanné recently met with Namibia's president and Gulf's chairman to discuss next steps for advancing the country's oil and gas assets. A final investment decision on Venus is expected later this year. Now to sport news. Kenya Rugby 7 star Kevin Wekesa has been awarded the International Olympic Committee Climate Action Award 2025 for his sustainability program, Play Green, which leverages sport to combat climate change. The initiative has eliminated single-use plastics from national teams, planted over 2,300 trees, introduced match day recycling, and engaged thousands of students in climate education. Play Green has replaced disposable bottles with reusable aluminum bottles, saving nearly 1,000 plastics weekly, and partnered with 40 schools to combine tree planting with workshops on water conservation, waste management, and climate justice. Wekesa plans to expand the program nationwide through plastic-free stadium zones, biodegradable packaging, and a Green Ambassador initiative in schools. The award, announced during the IOC session in Milan ahead of the Milano Cortina 2026 Olympic Winter Games, recognize athletes, national Olympic committees, and international federations driving measurable sustainability impact. IOC President Kirsty Coventry praised the winners for showing how protecting the planet can go hand in hand with sporting excellence. Let's take a look at the weather forecast across Africa. That's all for today. Before I conclude, I would like to invite you to watch our weekly program Roundup, which is coming up next. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.
The African Union was established in 2002 with the objective of overcoming the major limitations and predicaments of its predecessors, Organization of African Unity. Although the Organization of African Unity was very much successful in terms of liberating African countries from yokes of colonization and external domination and subjugation, it failed to respond to the evolving demands of African people. Consequently, African leaders replaced the Organization of African Unity with the African Union. The African Union, under its Agenda 2063, envisages to see a prosperous, peaceful and integrated Africa by that year, 2063. Each year, African leaders gather here at the African Union headquarters located in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and deliberate on the specific theme of the African Union. The 2026 African Union theme is assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. Today, I am joined by a special guest from the African Union. Stick around to explore more on this super important theme of the continent, which is assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goal of Agenda 2063. Harsan Nyambe, Director of Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy at the African Union, thank you so much for making time to conduct this interview.
Thank you very much, sir, for inviting me.
Before we dive into the core part of the interview, do you think the African Union is moving forward as per the expectation of the people of Africa and in a manner that it can achieve the goal of Agenda 2063, which is a blueprint to ensure inclusive and sustainable socio-economic development? Let's start with this.
Thank you very much. I would say that the African Union is actually on track in terms of addressing the challenges of the continent, and as you are aware, we have got political commitment at the highest level, and policies are being put in place. Programs are also being developed to try and contribute towards achieving the targets of Agenda 2063. So definitely there's progress. Of course, challenges will always be there, but if you look at the continental free trade area, I think we've made progress there. If you look at issues of energy, we are making progress. Issues of agriculture, issues of environment, in terms of policies, definitely we are moving very fast. But I think the areas that will need strengthening is issues of financing. Financing some of these programs currently remains a challenge.
The 2026 African Union team is assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation system to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. How relevant, how important is the team for ordinary citizens in Africa?
Well, water is one of the catalysts for development. Whether we are talking of industrialization in Africa, we'll need water. If we are talking of generating energy, we are talking of health, all sectors basically are connected to issues of water. Therefore, if you are able to secure the supply of water, obviously you'll be able to unlock some of the sectors in terms of development. But apart from that, issues of sanitation are also quite critical. I think COVID-19 taught us some lessons. As Africans in general, we have got a tendency to wash our hands. So even when COVID came, it was not such a big deal for us because people had already the practice to wash their hands. Therefore, we need water to wash our hands. We also need sanitation to make sure that our people remain healthy. Because with a health population, you can be able to achieve your goals and you can be able also to cut on expenditure.
Mm-hmm. As the Director of Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy at the African Union, what specific initiatives and strategy is your office implementing in order to ensure safe sanitation and sustainable water across the continent?
Well, we serve as a secretariat for the AU. Therefore, our work involves supporting development of policies like the Africa Water Vision and Policy, which is under development currently. We support member states in terms of capacity building, especially on accessing investments or finance that is required for the water sector, like the infrastructure that we are talking about. We contribute also in terms of facilitating knowledge exchange or sharing of best practices, as well as monitoring and reporting on these issues. And currently we have also developed some multi-country programs or projects where member states, for example, one of them we have got 15 member states who are working together, funded by the Green Climate Fund, for them to build resilience within the water sector to the impact of climate change. So those are some of the initiatives that we have. But of course, there's also what they call the high-level panel on water investment, which composed of heads of states, current and former, and they've been spearheading, advocacy for investments in the water sector in Africa. I think you may be aware that His Excellency, the President of South Africa, last year hosted a summit on water investment. So those are some of the initiatives basically that we are working on.
With regards to water availability and safe sanitation, what concrete and tangible achievements and results have been obtained so far?
So far, there have been an improvement in terms of the number of people who have got access to clean water over the years, and we have also seen that even when it comes to sanitation, the numbers have been reducing over the years. I think that's a good sign. Of course, we are not yet there, but I think we are moving in the right direction. And in terms of policies, I think member states have put the right frameworks to be able to move towards the achievement of secure water as well as sanitation.
Down the road, there might be obstacles and good fortunes. So what opportunities and challenge do you see in terms of achieving sustainable water and safe sanitation across the continent?
In terms of challenges, I would say that governments, even though many times we blame them, they face a lot of challenges with regard to priorities. There are a lot of other priorities like health, like education. So the water and sanitation sector has to compete with some of these priorities as well, and sometimes it's not easy. And then secondly, apart from the competition among the priorities, there are also challenges related to disasters as well as impacts of climate change, such as drought and so forth. If you look at the Horn of Africa, there is constant drought occurrence. So as such, when this drought, obviously governments will have to prioritize addressing drought. When there's floods, like what is happening in Southern Africa, in countries like Mozambique, they will have to abandon whatever investment they are focusing on and divert resources, obviously, to respond to disasters. And recently also we are experiencing changes in the global financial landscape. You can see that investments are becoming, should I say, scarce because of the global changes. But I think our major challenge is actually infrastructure, to be able to take advantage of the resources that we have in terms of water. So the water that's available mainly will be in certain areas, but access to that water for the whole continent require infrastructure and require cooperation among member states. And I think if we do that, improve investments in water infrastructure, we'll be able to address some of these challenges. Of course, AU has some of the programs such as PIDA, which also cover water infrastructure. But again, we need to make sure that there's sufficient investments into the water sector and cooperation again among member states. So those are some of the challenges. But in terms of opportunities, we have got a political will in the continent. I think our leaders are very supportive when it comes to issues of water. You know, there are a lot of projects that are ongoing at national level which show that governments are serious and committed. So that's an advantage. But in addition to that, there's been improvement in terms of governance of these water resources. There's been improvement in terms of capacity. You know, capacity has been built in some of these areas, and we continue to invest in this capacity building process so that member states can be able to develop pipelines of projects for investments as well as attract the necessary financing.
As far as I'm concerned, collaboration and cooperation between and among stakeholders is incredibly important to achieve your goal. So how is your office collaborating with stakeholders such as governments, civil societies and other entities in terms of achieving your goal?
Well, it is not possible to implement even the water vision, or whether we are talking about the theme of the year on water, without incorporating every stakeholders. So various stakeholders, they've got roles to play. For example, if we talk about the international community or the private sector, we expect them to contribute in terms of investments. When we talk about government, we expect them to provide an enabling environment, apart from also contributing to investments. Local communities also, if they don't participate or they don't cooperate, obviously what we are trying to achieve will not be realized. So basically, at the end of the day, we need everybody to play a role, and we need implementation at all levels.
Harsen Nayambe, Director of Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy at the African Union. I have finished all my questions to you. Do you have any message to convey to the audience?
Just to say that water is critical, and we all need to rally behind the AU during this year to support the theme of the year, so that we can be able to promote the importance of water, but also to attract, support within the water sector. And obviously, everybody has to play a role. Like you have said, we need partnerships to be able to make progress.
My interview with Harsen Nayambe, Director of Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy at the African Union in Zambia. The 2026 African Union Summit is going to be held after a couple of days under the theme Assuring Sustainable Water Availability and Safe Sanitation Systems to Achieve the Goals of Agenda 2063. And our Pan-African media, Pulse of Africa, will provide in-depth coverage on this super important agenda of the continent. Do stay with the Pulse of Africa, and bye for now.